a lot of kind of questions being thrown at them, obviously, after the first two league games, and questions around the, I suppose, work rate and all of these things, and I suppose you had a big issue in Galway football for a long time, whereby they kind of really lacked like a leadership group, and that's kind of that lack of, I suppose, you had a lot of really good young players and young teams come through, but they didn't really have that structure of a good dressing room, or not necessarily not a good dressing room, but just not that winning or structured dressing room to come into to kind of follow a process. And a lot of good players and good kind of underage teams didn't really filter through. And like this team is kind of, whether we were going back into there earlier, kind of maybe not playing the traditional Galway ways, whatever, but they got back to being a consistently Division One, consistently kind of finals winning kind of titles, being like to an All-Ireland final, being like a top team again. And so like, but now this season you're kind of back at a stage where you're missing so many core leaders. I mean, you're missing core leaders, and lads are coming in and getting their chance. Like getting young players come in to take their chance when they're surrounded by leaders, brings energy and brings fight. But when you've just got a load of kind of new faces coming into a team, and other lads who are kind of not that experienced, like you're not going to have that cohesive like unit. So it's judging them on the first two games, I think, very harsh.
The Maroon White Pod, brought to you by Citylink. For bookings, timetables, updates and any other information, head to citylink.ie. This week now, I'm delighted to be joined by Eamon Donoghue of the Irish Times to look ahead to Galway versus Tyrone this Sunday at 1:45 in Omagh. This week, it's nice to get an outside voice from Galway and see what the perspective is on the Galway senior footballers so far heading into this weekend, and what to expect from this game against Tyrone. Firstly, Eamon, there's obviously, like every year, a lot being made of what the league is for some teams and everything else. So far, what have you made of Division One of the Alliance League?
Um, I suppose like there's been a lot of teams like that have been hit by, are at different stages in terms of the availability of players, and like obviously the two teams playing this weekend, Galway and Tyrone, are both hit badly by injuries. You've Roscommon in the early rounds have been hit by injuries and the club commitments, and you're seeing in that like obviously some, like it's not probably a reflection fully, but you're also seeing that like the teams with the really strong squads probably as well, which is going to really have a benefit, or have it making, is going to be noticeable as the year goes on, because obviously with the championship format now and the added games, like that's more apparent as well. Like, and then the way the game has gone, you need to have those players who come on and make an impact. So, like in terms of the league so far, what I'd be kind of looking for is in terms of like style of play and that essentially, and the teams who are, if there's a particular team who, at this time of year, it's generally who's done more work, but like Derry obviously look really, really strong. Dublin kind of two games, I've seen the two games, like whenever they've obviously two defeats, like, but it's hard to know exactly where they are. And you kind of get a feeling with a lot of teams as well, as in some years, yeah, how much is each team putting on the league essentially as well. Like, so like Dublin aren't going all out for the league. Galway definitely aren't going all out for the league. For other counties there, like they would be battling hard. Like Roscommon, for instance, to stay in Division One would be huge. Like it'd nearly be a focus for them this year with everything that's gone on. So yeah, so there's a lot of kind of moving parts with it. Like, but still at early doors as well. Only two rounds in.
Do you buy it that teams don't want to reach a league final?
Like you can obviously see, you've seen last year with Mayo, like, and then Roscommon kind of catching them the following
Mm.
weekend. Like, I don't think I think there is an element of peaking, like, and I think there is an element of, I don't think teams don't want to, but like they're not going flat out for the league, so it's priorities. Like, so Galway, the management team, aren't at that stage where their focus is completely on, hitting the league hard and developing, like they're at a stage now with that management team that they need to be delivering. Like, so the league isn't full priority, where other teams a bit further along the way. Like last year, Mayo, for instance, the league would have been huge priority, and it was like, so as I said, for a county like Roscommon trying to stay in Division One, like Tyrone are in big transition periods, staying in Division One would be huge for them. Like, so it's different things for different teams, like, but so I don't think anyone's like actively trying not to get to the final, but in terms of it being a team's priority and going fully after it, and then the knock on from that, then not being in the final, you may see an element of that, yeah, for sure.
One thing you mentioned there at the start, style of play, and at the start of the league, there can nearly be a crisis of we need to fix Gaelic football, what's wrong with it? But this year, there hasn't seemed to be a crisis yet. Is it in a healthy place, do you think, the game at the moment?
Well, I feel like there's a massive, like, there's definitely elements of positivity. I think even in the club final, style of play at Bridges Broad, if you look at Corofin, like obviously when in Galway and the style of play that they brought, you're seeing kind of definitely an increase in the long kickouts. And then you're seeing like kind of more intensity, more and competitive games for sure. Like, so I suppose in terms of if you're looking at the game, a lot of the complaints of the game would be around kind of just the competitiveness and that kind of as an entertainment product. And I think that like people couldn't really be hitting on it as much at the start of this year, even during the club, because we have seen a lot of that. I think then the other side in terms of when you're seeing the game in terms of our skill set, the pure skill set of Gaelic football, your kick pass and your fielding and your general kind of movements and patterns of play that you would like to see an element of in GA. I still think that there's a big lack of focus on that, and there's a huge amount of focus on, I suppose, conservative play. Like, so, like for me, there's inevitably, like, as the season will go on, and I actually think the judgment on these things is more so what you see at club level, general club level. And when you look at your general club football at the moment, like, there's still a lot of running around, hand passing the ball. Like, you can call it tactics, but like, tactics are brilliant. Like, but there's an awful lot of just risk averse football. Like, so, yeah, like the same way Corofin kind of, kind of set the standard nationally, and it's always great to see them kind of kick on and be on a national platform to kind of show the other way. You kind of like for Galway to do the same. Kind of not really with this team, aren't really playing to that style, but you'd still like to think that in Crow Park with the traditional and the high quality players, you'd still would see enough of that.
Just on, you mentioned there between Corofin and Galway, at different stages, I suppose, particularly the last day in the Hyde, you talk about some of that conservative play, and it is something we did see with Galway the last day. Has that been a frustration for you when you watch this Galway team?
Well, look, there's an element of like right through that where Galway were, like, say even before Kevin Walsh taking them over and kind of developing, finding that balance between kind of, adapting to the modern game, um, and then obviously fitting in personnel. Like when if you pick your best Galway team, if everyone is available on paper, like, you probably have six really nice forwards, like, but then are you getting the other elements of the game that you need out of, like, and then you're kind of having situations where you're putting backs into forwards, and you kind of end up with it's very hard to find a balance, like, so, like I think in the first year Cork had a nice kind of balance, especially even in the forward line, even between like stuff which you don't see as much of now in the modern game, even in terms of left footers and right footers, and Galway had kind of a nice balance to the way that they played on the playing on the counter attack through the hands, and then getting the kick passing in, and but yeah, like there's something where you would look to see with the talent that's there in Galway, but like at the same time, that team at the moment is it's hit hard by injuries. Like, it's hit massively hard. Like, you're probably looking at that. Like, I was thinking there with Galway, like that All Ireland final winning team, like they probably needed to have about three or four lads like who were good enough to start or to fight for the place to be coming into that team. Where in reality, you're kind of back to the stage you were at before that, where can you even get that team fit enough to play? Like, and so it's hard to come on from that. Like,
You mentioned the word at the start that this management team needs to deliver, particularly after last year, where a lot of people go are all Ireland favourites to go on and win it out. Do you think this is the year when you consider the age some of the team are at? Like if you look at Paul Conroy, Damien Comer, Shane Walsh, the age they're at, and the panel and the management team, it's year five now under them.
Um, I think the pressure is 100% on the management team for sure. Like if management team doesn't get to an Ireland final or deliver an All Ireland, like geez, like it's very hard to point to progress like over a good period there. Like so, obviously injuries and all these things do play their part, and there's obviously other factors throughout the overall tenure. But like, there's a pressure on the management, like, and I think you see that in terms of the league isn't their priority. Like, look, it can't be because of the injuries, but you can see like even in the pre-season tournaments, like in terms of getting a team ready for championship to try and have an All Ireland, and that's what Bork was saying from the very start when he took over. Like, and that kind of there were periods, I said, where the league was of more benefit to them than other times. Where at the moment, like the kind of they don't have it said as full of a choice in that because of the injuries, but also like there's a pressure on the management team to be contesting an All Ireland, and then if the players are there, like if you think of like Galway's full strength team, if everyone is there, they should be like and good young players coming in, but yeah, like when you think of the players who are missing, and then you think of kind of the talent like of your likes of your Killing McDade's and Sean Kelly's and Damien Comer's, Shane Walsh, like, and then you think of even kind of the players who should be coming into that, like, your Sam O'Neill's and your McLaughlin's and stuff. Like, they're just, it's kind of unfortunate, like, or it's not kind of, but there's still time for that to click at the right time, and that's if Joyce, some of the stuff he does at times can be a bit confusing, but like at the same time, he's somebody who obviously knows the timing of when to click for an All Ireland, like, there's plenty of experience of that, like, or to be there and thereabouts.
Just before we do get in and look at this game on Sunday, from your own perspective, what's it like working in the media around this time of year when the league is on?
Um, so this time of year, like the interest in the league varies at different years. Like, so like the last few years there's been a good strong interest in the league, and you're seeing that kind of reflected in attendances and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I suppose at this time of year, it's it's about trying to find, I suppose, patterns of play, emerging teams, emerging players. Like for me, anyway, like I'm kind of trying to think of, what will be the 2 or 3 points that people are going to be talking about for the rest of the year in terms of play. Is it high press? Is it, just trying to think of the things, and some of them might be just an evolution of what was in the last couple of years, whether it's goalkeepers or trying the attack, but like trying to find, for me anyway, that's the big thing that I find of interest, is trying to find those 2 or 3 things that like that you can imagine at the end of the year every club team is going to be trying to pick up and do, um, and how the game is going to morph with that. And like for me, I prefer when those things are kind of more in a positive light, or when I'm saying positive, I mean more like, yeah, like taking it by the scruff of the neck rather than, again, risk averse kind of tactics. And so trying to look at that, and then obviously looking for players as well who are coming and breaking through. Looking at the club players who kind of stood out, like on a Galway perspective, like, I would have been really looking forward to seeing Sam O'Neill kind of have a crack around there from seeing the club championship. You would have liked to see, you kind of waiting a while to see like what McLaughlin kind of do, if he was available around the middle there, and they add to the options. Galway are kind of strong around there anyway, like, but the young Cara Finn lads as well, like looking to see how they could kick in and what kind of position, and it's the same across the board with different counties, like, and that's kind of the exciting thing about the league, is finding those players, because they'll get that opportunity, limited enough opportunities then come championship, like, because obviously the pressure is so intense.
Have you seen an evolution or a style of play yet that has surprised you, or is it too early to tell, probably given the even weather conditions that these games have been played in so far?
Yeah, I think like, and in a lot of the games you kind of seen parts of games as well. Like, in the preseason tournaments, you're not seeing the full game and you're getting reports of stuff. You need to kind of be towards the end of the league, I think, to really kind of see something that's like being consistently applied. And I think the one that I'm kind of keeping an eye out for is the press, like Jim McGuinness, Donegal press, like just that kind of zonal high press, a defense from, like, it's obviously a defensive tactic, but like it's you see it in other sports. Um, that concept of, kind of zonally splitting the pitch and coming hard and yeah, like I think it would be a nice evolution for the game. Like, in a lot of ways, but it changed the game massively because, like backs then you're seeing a lot now of like backs getting so much free ball, like carrying the ball up the field, and you're kind of looking at the back now. You kind of almost want your back to be comfortable on the ball, carrying it with loads of time and space. Where if you're getting them pressed now, they have to be able to break out through that. It just changes the game again, and the requirements, and like that's something that I'm kind of keeping an eye out for. And then like I'd be looking at ways, how can you kind of analyze that, or how can you kind of measure that, or how can you kind of see that as being something rather than just, as I'm doing there, just kind of describing it, but how can you actually quantify what that is? And you need to have, you need to be able to see it enough to be able to say that. And then obviously sometimes when you're looking for that, something else, you can see something else, but like, um, I suppose that's the stuff that I like to do in terms of media, but I know everyone's not the same with that.
Just going on this Sunday then, Galway are at the exact same stage as last year after two games, had a point. But going into this one, it's obviously a difficult trip. You're going up to Omagh, Tyrone 2 points, and they're coming into this one on the back of a disappointing performance against Derry. Whoever wins this, it's huge for them. Whoever loses it is going into that kind of relegation battle.
Yeah, yeah. Like, if you're looking at the league, like regardless of who you are, like the two teams that you probably would have seen as the two maybe weaker teams, like it's a strong Division 1 for a start this year. Like, like the teams have obviously come up, Derry and Dublin came up, like, it's a strong Division 1, stronger than it was last year. But the two teams you probably would fancy, especially with Roscommon kind of early on being not at full strength, and they can't afford to not be at full strength. If we were Roscommon and Tyrone, maybe the kind of teams that you'd be fancying getting in. And Galway have obviously drawn with Roscommon, kind of fortunate enough to get that. And now Tyrone, they need to get their 2 points off of that, really. Like, I suppose if you were to look at that in that relegation battle, like as in Galway, Tyrone have a chance now against a weakened Galway, and they've already beaten Roscommon. So like it's huge for them to get them wins, because they'll really struggle even as they get to full strength or close to full strength, to beat the bigger or the better teams. And Roscommon likewise, especially if the momentum like of not picking up wins kind of gets to them. Whereas I suppose you could argue if Galway get to full strength, they could still fancy their arm against picking up points against anyone. But it's still a league, and it's still, it's still consecutive games where and momentum comes into play. So like it's a massive one, because it's probably the weakest team that they're going to play for the rest of the league, and it's also, 3 games in, you don't want to be on a point, like, and that what that will do for momentum. So yeah, like it's a huge one for Galway in the context of the league, and staying in the league, and then obviously pick that up and you kind of pick up bigger momentum. Things change massively, like at this early stage.
With that, there are two teams that are nearly in similar situations. Galway have obviously had those 6 players out injured, Tyrone have 5 or 6 as well. So it does kind of even itself out. Even we might see some of these players even back this weekend as well.
Yeah, and Tyrone have a few lads who've stepped away and stuff like that as well. Yeah, like I still think, like, I think Galway are a stronger team than Tyrone. Like in my eyes, anyway, Galway at full strength are a good bit stronger team than Tyrone. The only thing you'd say with Galway is, like, the thing with the injuries, like it's at a stage where, like Damien Comer, Killian McDade, like savage players, like absolutely savage players and savage athletes, but like you're kind of at a point in championship consistently over the seasons where there's a good chance that they'll be injured come championship. Like so like when you're saying, like, it's not like a gimme, as in, you got these 6 lads come back, like consistently over the years that they're carrying knock. So like it's the likelihood of Galway getting that full strength is just that team is a massively injury hit team. It's not like, you see with other, teams at their peak, that lads are just very resilient and not picking up a lot of injuries where the Galway team, they pick up a lot of injuries. Like, so the idea of them having everyone at one time moving right and not like you see like McDade and Sean Kelly at different times last year and stuff like that, they're clearly carrying stuff. Like, so to get all of them moving right, like, so that's like, I think to the caliber of the players that Galway are missing, like they're serious players. Like, even look at last weekend, like Roscommon against Galway, like, when you're looking at that them players that Galway are missing, like, so that's a huge difference. Like, um, but as I said, like, when are you going to get all of them together? So it's one thing to say, oh, geez, we're missing all these lads, but like, when do you have them together? So can you really bank on the idea that you're going to get them all together again? And do you kind of have to start almost planning around a certain amount of, what would you do with if you only half of them, like, but yeah, like in terms of them both being weakened, but then Tyrone are in transition where Galway would like to think that they would try and win an All Ireland. Like, Tyrone are very much in transition, like, so even when them lads come back, there's a lot of young players playing. They're very much in transition where Galway are still very much looking for some players to add to a team. Like, if Galway had the majority of their team right, it would nearly be the team from the Ireland final a few years ago. Like, that would be nearly the team again. Like, where Tyrone are in a much more transition period. And like, I think Galway should definitely be targeting a win in that game. Like,
Where are they currently at the minute for you, Goa?
yeah, like there's obviously a lot of kind of questions being thrown at them, obviously, after the first two league games, and questions around the, I suppose, work rate and all of these things, and I suppose you had a big issue in Galway football for a long time whereby they kind of really lacked like a leadership group, and that's kind of that lack of, I suppose, you had a lot of really good young players and young teams come through, but they didn't really have that structure of a good dressing room, or not necessarily not a good dressing room, but just not that winning or structured dressing room to come into to kind of follow a process. And a lot of good players and good kind of underage teams didn't really filter through. And like, this team is kind of, whether we were going back into there earlier, kind of maybe not playing the traditional Galway ways, whatever, but they got back to being a consistently Division One, consistently kind of finals winning kind of titles, being like to an Ireland final, being like a top team again. And so like, but now this season you're kind of back at a stage where you're missing so many core leaders. I mean, you're missing core leaders, and lads are coming in and getting their chance. Like, getting young players come in to take their chance when they're surrounded by leaders, brings energy and brings fight. But when you've just got a load of kind of new faces coming into a team and other lads who are kind of not that experienced, like, you're not going to have that cohesive like unit. So it's judging them on the first two games, I think, very harsh. Their style of play, some of the tactical decisions does raise a few eyebrows. Like, like you're kind of looking at two wing backs playing wing forward kind of thing. Like, it does, there is some stuff which does raise eyebrows. Like I'd be looking at it in a situation where, like, I don't understand why they're not using the league to give more experimentation in certain positions, such as goalkeeper and stuff like that. Like, there are certain things where you would like to see more experimentation to kick on. But you'd still think that if Galway have their strongest team, they're definitely the best team in Connacht, and they're one of the best. They're one of the All Ireland contenders. Like, so, like, that's where they are when they've their strongest team. They're one of the best teams in Connacht, and they're an All Ireland contender. And like, you're looking at a season like last year where the All Ireland wasn't like, it was more open, like, and you're seeing that at the moment. It's not like years before where Dublin were just so dominant. So being at that level, you can contest in All Ireland, but on the same side, you have a few injuries and you don't even win Connacht, and you don't even, like, you have a year like last year, for going in the All Ireland series, like, so. Very hard for them. Like, they are in that kind of between areas where it could go in a lot of directions for them. But I would definitely like to see more experimentation. Would you not think that, like in terms of like I definitely think around the goalkeeper position, I'd like to see kind of just try like the goal. Gleason he's improved a lot, like and he's been solid and he's had a good season last year and stuff. But like you still would like to see a different like so Flaherty is a kind of different type of
Yeah.
goalkeeper. As outfield player can change the way that you play. Try it like and see how that goes and give it a run of games like you're seeing Galway lost a top quality goalkeeper already into Roscommon and like that goal he was behind Flaherty under like so yeah some of the stuff is a bit baffling like said even seeing the position and like half forward like I do think that Galway like Johnny Heaney made such a big impact when he came on against Roscommon and like he's one of the few kind of players to have and like obviously another lad who's kind of more of a back really like but um they do lack that kind of half forward kind of motor and kind of athlete player. That's kind of what they do struggle a little bit with, and that's why if you're kind of looking at that's why I'd have been looking at maybe a McLaughlin or Dan or a Sam O'Neill or one of the young lads who are playing around the middle, like to kind of maybe fill into a role like that and to see a bit of experimentation like that is what I'd like to see in the next few rounds. And then you might have a bit more confidence then if you get the lads back from injury that they could have a really good tilt. But in terms of results, staying up would be huge just in terms of confidence and momentum. But like the results isn't the end be all and end all for them, other than this weekend.
Yeah, with that, I think Sam's on his way back from injury. He got injured there in the quarter final. I think it was his MCL he did. So
Okay.
he's on his way back. And at the moment, James McLaughlin isn't part of the panel, which is a big blow.
Studying abroad or something, is he? Or
Studying abroad till June. So yeah, it's himself and Keane Hernan who aren't with the panel at all at the minute.
yeah,
So there's uncertainty there. But
yeah.
just when you reference the wing backs as the wing forwards, Carl Sweeney and Kieran Malloy, going by the Roscommon game, I think it's something Galway are going to stick with.
Like it's a funny one because you see an awful lot of wing forwards go back to wing back in the way the game has gone. The other way around is a very negative approach. Like as in putting wing backs, putting a natural forward or wing forward into wing back, like whether that's like kind of you can see the example of like putting a forward back into wing back like Conor McCarthy and Monaghan because frees up that space. That's the way the game has gone. That's like even what I was saying in terms of like with now the press might change that, but like you get a lot of free space now as a back carrying the ball up. So you have a good forward back there. Like St. Bridget's there had Rory Fallon gone back to wing back, and he was very strong in the club championship. Like that concept of putting a wing forward or a forward back into wing back, but putting a wing back up to wing forward generally would be suggest that you kind of don't have the options in the forward line or that you don't have that kind of player who's going to kind of do the work as well and like you'd like to think that you could try and convert a play like you see it with Dublin and like you see it with loads of counties that like the talented forwards can build that reservoir, that tank, and can put the work in as well. Where the idea of putting in half forwards in it, I just think it kind of is limiting, and it puts all the pressure then on certain forwards. It really like when them certain forwards are back, it would really mean a lot of relying on them rather than like trying to develop other guys into that role. Like kind of looking if you're looking at Roscommon in terms of like the likes you've seen the likes of Keane McKeown and stuff like that who kind of developed into that role. They wouldn't have been workers, but they ended up doing a lot of their work in the other half of the field, like where I don't know if that's Porrick's own kind of thing of the forwards kind of win the game and you get the rest of the lads kind of to do the work, like, but it just smacks of a lot of negativity to me. But also maybe he just horse for course at the moment he doesn't see the another fit to get that level of transition into their play, which is obviously huge.
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly Johnny Heaney's role now because when he came on against Roscommon, he played that kind of cornerback as the free role. Roscommon only playing a two-man inside line. He played as the free man, drove forward at any chance he got, but it's hard now to know where going on that game or Galway, looking at Johnny Heaney as a back now this year?
Yeah, it's hard to know with that because like obviously Roscommon play a particular way. Like when you look at Galway's half back options, like they've a serious amount of now look, I think I said in the modern game a lot of players are being converted into half back. So but like they have a lot of serious options at half back. Like even if you look at like Killian McDade's best position wing back, like like when you really go into so many of them, like Johnny Heaney wing back, Carl Sweeney, Kieran Malloy, himself, like when they all come in, they could play them all wing back, like or in that half back line, and with Daly at six, like they're very strong there, and you're trying to fit them kind of players, as many of them onto the pitch as you can. Um, and obviously they said all really good players. There's an element of that, and then like look, there's an element of that middle third positions now don't apply as much like that. That's 100% like and like Johnny Heaney tracking a corner forward out from corner back will end up in a lot of those similar positions as well. And then there are certain players who are kind of strong headspace and kind of really kind of good readers of the game and stuff like that, that they will just do their role and they will play the way they play regardless of what kind of position they're on. So like if they're going to be coming out following somebody, as long as they're in around those spaces, they'll still do the same thing. So it's look, there is an element of kind of adapting to the game and to the day, but if it's the thing, if it's consistently being set up that way, like I said, it just does come across a bit negative. And Johnny Heaney, like that's not going to work obviously in every game. So like and you're obviously leaving yourself in a situation where he ends up with the opposition just push their corner forward back in again. Like, and that's obviously just a few changes, but like it's a bit of chess, like, which is I don't see them doing that. I think Johnny over the years has been just so strong in that wing forward position. I think that he'll end up there again. Like
Just with this on Sunday, Go have obviously been given chances then to Liam O'Connell, Killian O'Curran in those corner forward positions, and the two of them have impressed at different stages. A lot of the work they're doing off the ball, that probably people aren't seeing, but for the first kind of real years at senior level, they have impressed. But it's another game this weekend that's going to bring them two players on.
yeah, I really like Killian O'Curran. Like I think has a thing about him like where he likes to like he's very brave like and he like he's very comfortable being a focal point of it. He's not afraid to make mistakes. He'll take the man on, he'll go for it, and like that kind of like the only thing with that is that when you have Walsh and these lads back, they're going to pick that mantle. And like you can see Curry, obviously a lot can happen and he's a young man, like, but you can see him like filling that role for Galway in the future. But like as where they're looking for someone now to like slot into the forward line and work as a unit with those. You don't really see him do that because that's not the ask of him now. The ask of him now is actually to kind of be a leader there because Walsh and Comer and these lads aren't there. So like I'd like to see how he kind of operates in that mix with them. Because that's kind of be the telling point for me in terms of this year and what you could get out of them. But in terms of their development, yeah, like this, getting them consistent games. Like you've seen O'Curran kind of taking on the man a lot against Roscommon and he got stripped a good bit, like, but like he'll learn so much because of the way he plays. Like, because he's having a go, like, a lot of young players would go in and just kind of keep it safe and their learning graph would be a lot less, whereas he's like he goes for it, like so like he's the learning he would have, the data he would have to process coming home from that. Like I think his rate of improvement as well will be huge. I really like him, and I think he's one who, when you're talking about could you get from that if you had that All Ireland final team and you could add three or four lads to it, like he'd be one who would definitely you'd like to think if he could get fit, that he could be fighting for a starting place, or if not coming on making a huge impact and having anyone who is starting bursting their bollocks to knowing that he's going to come on. Like,
We do hope that the conditions will improve because the first two rounds have been just terrible conditions Galway played in. But a big target has to be when we look at the scores we've got from our forwards in both games, it really hasn't been enough. But like Galway this weekend are surely targeting to get more of a spread from their forwards. The likes, as we mentioned there, Curran and O'Keneela and Tierney and Finnerty again, if they both start. Just really to get more scores on the board from their forwards as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, and look, you're going into a situation again where we've said lads, not a team that have been look, the team has played together in underage and stuff like that, but like as a unit, like that team's not fully cohesive. Different lads kind of playing, taking their chance. They're not kind of don't have that leadership group kind of carrying. They're obviously then because they're weaker, they're set up a bit more defensive, and just by the way they set up is a bit negative. So it's the opportunities for forwards there aren't, and then the conditions, So, but I think that like this Galway team, like when your main forward is Shane Walsh, like you kind of set yourself up for you're setting yourself up for a forward who is quite individual, like so, like you kind of just creating spaces for him to do the damage, like and um, yeah, like that's the way that they play. So it's kind of hard. Like they're not playing fluidly enough, but there are loads of factors to that. Like I don't expect them to go out against their own and suddenly like just go for it, like or pick playing a different way. Like they're developing a style, and then when the personnel come in, they'll fit better into that system. When everyone's there, and Park looking at who can come in and do a job with that. Like so, who come in as a sub in that, and who could fit in. And because again, he's targeting that All Ireland. But like yeah, the scores are very very low for like to win a game. Like it's 9 points last time. So
Yeah.
um yeah, like you've seen when Derry obviously operate at a different pace. They rip through Tyrone, like so. Um, that's the way obviously to go at Tyrone, like rather than Tyrone only like it if you kind of play that game of defensive ball with them, like so. Yeah, and like they've not the Ulster teams with the best experience of that, like doing it all their lives, like so you're still kind of playing into their hands. But Galway a good record against Ulster teams, So um yeah, like I still think that like I don't expect like I haven't actually looked at the forecast for the weekend, but like yeah, like that definitely does play into it. Like
Yeah, on the injury front, just Shane Walsh's injury hasn't been as bad as expected, so maybe we might see him this weekend. Liam Silk and Sean Kelly have both kind of began their return to play protocols, but it's hard to know will they be ready for this weekend if not. But like even if we can get one or two of those players back, it's huge.
yeah, yeah, and like again, like I don't think Cork will be taking a huge risk with any of them. Like
Yeah.
like he wouldn't be taking a huge risk with them, like because the long run for them lads is still the main thing. But like yeah, like if you can get like a part of their return to play, if part of that is 15 minutes, like a good strong 15 minutes there would be good for them and be huge for Galway. Like just give them a boost, a crowd a boost, and everything in a close game. Um, yeah, like it's just for the young players, like just having them lads on the field will give that lift because like what happened to Galway football when it had that dip, which it's still kind of fully finding its feedback, is where you had a stage where like, if you were to just take Damien Comer and Shane Walsh and all these lads out now and just never came back, and then suddenly you have to find a new leadership group from nothing, like that's what was there before. So like that them lads now they've developed themselves into them roles, and yeah, like them being on the field would give a huge boost to the other lads.
Just on Tyrone then before we finish, good at stages against Roscommon. Uh, probably they'll admit themselves poor overall the last day. A lot of this under 20 group coming through, but there's challenges as I suppose with Tyrone, especially this week. They play a good few of their players. I think it's four or five in total play with Jordanstown in the Sigerson Cup final on Wednesday, and then they go again on Sunday against Goa.
Yeah, yeah, and look, there's pros and cons with that in terms of the obviously fatigue comes into it in terms of injuries, but there's also for them young lads kind of breaking into Tyrone senior team and playing in the Sigerson, like it's great road like momentum of football, like they're again their rate of improvement and growth and stuff like that at the moment be huge, like and yeah, like I think that I think the Tyrone in the game so far, like the Roscommon game, they were the better team. Roscommon were completely depleted, but Roscommon really should have had a draw, like that goal, So,
Yeah.
like it was far from, and then they were absolutely like they were well beaten there the last day, like so. And that would have been had a hit on them, like with Mickey as well coming to town, and like I think that would have had an impact on them. So like if Galway can get in early, like um, yeah, like the confidence will be there for the taking. But like I suppose they'll be saying the same about Galway, like that if they can get in there early and kind of set a just kind of get the doubts in the mind, like. But yeah, like I think with Tyrone, like watching them again, we were talking about like what are you watching for this time of year? Like you kind of think Canavan inside is like who's going to pick him up is kind of a big thing. Like they kind of really do leave him inside, and they in fairness to them, they do get ball into him. Um, he's kind of in there on his own, like so who's going to pick him up, and that's kind of will be a
Probably
key
Johnny
part of the
McGrath.
game. Probably,
Yeah.
probably, and that's a big test for him because like he wouldn't be in that, he wouldn't have that role if, even if you had John Glynn back, not to mind if you had your full cohort of backs available, so he'll pick him up probably, and then obviously like he'll be expecting support from his backs, and there'll be plenty of them around there with Galway, like so. But like how they manage that, like will be a lot of Tyrone's big threat. Like Paul Conroy was outstanding the last day midfield.
Yeah.
Toronto midfield has been very strong. You wouldn't be judging the midfield too much against Roscommon. Roscommon have struggled so far this year midfield, kind of made progress with it the last few years there, but like they got absolutely swamped midfield against Tyrone as well. Like so, um, like Tyrone's midfield have been, Tyrone's midfield is experienced there, and Patrick and Kennedy, like that's a good midfield. So we're seeing more ball being kicked out. Like that would be a good contest area. Um, and an important one as well. Like so, Conroy I think will play an important role in that game. Um, so yeah, like that will come into it. But like I think that's their two kind of areas will be if Galway can kind of get a good plateau, like, or a good area, a good balance in, or a good evenness in the middle, and have shackles on Canavan, like they should be strong enough elsewhere.
So you see Galway winning this one on Sunday?
Yeah, I think Galway will win it. Like I don't massively rate the Tyrone team, like even whenever everyone. Like I just don't think they've got enough balance. They've got loads of really good economical footballers, but they're kind of a lot of similar footballers. I don't think it gives them the full balance. They obviously are All Ireland, a lot of All Ireland medals when they've got everyone, like, and you can't take that away. But I think that full balance, and then obviously when you've got like Matty Donnelly and Colin McShane, these that give them a bit of balance, and they're not there. Tyrone has pedigree now, like they produce really good footballers, but like a lot of them can be quite a similar prototype type of player who's very adaptable, can play in a lot of positions, very comfortable on the ball, powerful, competitive, like very good decision maker, and like they've a lot of those, and it kind of creates a so yeah, and like that's why the kind of X factor they have inside is Canavan, and it kind of put the shackles on that on him. But I think that Galway have enough overall. Like even if you look at that, like that Roscommon team that played against Galway was a lot stronger than what played against Tyrone. Like I think that Galway team, even the last day, should beat Tyrone. Like
Just one final thing, Eamon, before we finish that I want to touch on. It was announced during the week that Mark McHugh, former Donegal footballer and former Roscommon coach, is going to take up a coaching role with Mike Cullen for the 2024 season. It's a huge addition, really, for a club side, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, and look, he definitely would have had a role to play in with Roscommon last year in terms of, they were, especially early in the year, they were flying it, like, I don't think there's massive secret in terms of like the running and the like that he would have obviously experienced himself under McGuinness, and that he brought to Roscommon, and like just you've seen and you still seeing it to you're still seeing it carried across this year, that like they're obviously favouring that kind of pass and cut and long running kind of play, and that's kind of central to him. So like he'll add that to, on a club level, you imagine at fitness levels and stuff, like them lads are in for a tough pre-season, like but yeah, like that's a big one for club level. big loss for Roscommon. Whatever happened there, won't speculate, but it's a big loss for Roscommon. Like, but at club level, that's a big, big. Yeah, it's a serious kind of coach to have in there. Like, and he obviously has that experience from last year of the top tier. Like, so coming in and pushing Mike Cullen on, like yeah, and they'll need it because Corofin, you'd imagine, will have taken a lot from last year. Kind of, they wouldn't have expected, I don't think, to have been at that jump with some of them lads as quickly as they did. Like, so yeah, so they'll need everything that they can. But like, it'd be good for Galway football to have that. Like, because again, like when you're criticizing, kind of, there is that, you don't want to be like Mead either, like where you're kind of stuck in your traditions and you know you're a million miles off the modern game. Like, it is trying to find that balance. Like, Mead aren't Galway or near that, but you don't want to be like that. And when you've got the different types of play, it helps. Um, but at the same time, like, you do like to see Galway of all counties. You'd like to think that Galway and Kerry and these counties would will bring the right type of play even amid all of the kind of risk averse play. But sure, yeah, have to get past this weekend first and build up a bit of momentum and get bodies back on the field, and things can swing. As you said, Galway last year were in the same points. Like, things can change very quickly.
Absolutely. Well, Eamon, thanks a million for your time, and that's all we do have time for on today's show.
Thanks, Bob.